Hey everyone, I was mid-sip. Welcome, welcome. It is Wednesday, which means Coffee with Kari Day. So we have a live weekly edition of this that you can ask me any question you'd like. Post it in the comments and we're over in the live chat and I will answer. So I'm a funeral director and embalmer in Michigan. So I am a mortician. So I'm here to answer your questions. A lot are submitted from the week previous, and I try and get to those questions. A lot are emailed to me. I get to those as well. So we're going to dive in this week. Good morning, Mary. We're going to dive in this week because I have a lot of questions that were submitted to me from last week. I always say that, don't I? I always say there's a lot of questions. My mom had patches of skin that had started to break open from pressure on her buttocks and on her shoulder. Is anything done with those types of issues during the embalming preparation process? So after the person is embalmed, or even maybe during, they may be treated with a chemical press. So we would take like a cotton type item and take some maybe gel, that's preservative gel or straight chemical embalming fluid, and put it on there and place it on that area so that we're getting some preservation from the outside into that tissue. If that tissue is necrotic, then we may cut out the necrotic areas because those are going to get really stinky and oozy and you can't really fix that part. So you want to get rid of it and then treat the tissue that's there. So after the embalming, we would dry the person and then we would place maybe another pack on that area for overnight, or a pack and then seal it up for the viewing and visitation. So it's drying that area, treating that area, and then encasing that area if there is any leakage or anything coming out of that area. Morning, everybody. Hello. Happy birthday to JW. I will not start singing, but happy birthday to you. Hey, Robert, how are you doing? JW, I'm so excited you're joining me on your birthday. Smile. Oh, awesome, awesome. You'll get a birthday hug in a couple months when I come down. How about? Have you seen any of the videos with Jeremy DeWitt in Florida? So disrespectful as a funeral escort. I have not. Jeremy DeWitt. When you guys tell me these things, I type them in so that I can read about them after we chat, because latest court trial failed to register police impersonator. I'll have to look into that. You guys always bring some really good information to the table. Ooh, 36 years young, rocking it at 36. It seems like at every viewing I've gone to, the hands always look very made up, and that you can tell that they are dark. Why do the hands get so dark so quickly? Well, especially if they're an older person, they may have kind of that liver spots, or if they were on blood thinners, the hands are one of the first areas that darken from bruising and things. And so that blood will pool right under the surface. And those will be cosmetized sometimes. It depends on the embalmer, because some cosmetics, they will forgo if the person's hands appear to be the way they were all the time. You know, if someone had been on blood thinners for a long time, or they had been, they had spots for a long time, they may just leave them. It's really about who's getting them ready or what the family voice is. A lot of times also, if the person was in the hospital, they're going to have an IV here. And so they'll have bruising from the IVs, and they do cover those. So that's usually kind of some of the first. And then also your hands are kind of thin, the skin, and so the nail beds will darken pretty quickly, and some of those things that we do combat. What is a good tip to find in the cardiac artery? I heard sometimes they're damaged coming from a corner. What do you mean cardiac artery? There's no artery called the cardiac artery. Hey, Christy in Australia. Oh, that's a great question. My dad has serious lung and heart issues and is declining. He won't talk about his final wishes. How can I raise the question with a stubborn man in denial? I think a great way to approach this would be to just say, Dad, I understand you don't want to say anything, but I would like to say something. I know you love me, and I know you want to take care of me because I'm your child, and we're all going to die, whether, it's 100 years or 50 years, we're all going to die. And I just want to have in my mind how you want to be taken care of so I can follow your wishes. Or if you don't care and want me to decide, let me know that as well. And just kind of put it out there that he is giving you kind of a gift by giving you some information about this. Maybe say to him, I'm not planning that you're leaving me soon, but I would rather know so that when the time comes, I don't have to guess and I don't have to wonder if I would be making you happy or not with my choices, kind of thing. So kind of put it on him in a little different way. I want to know if you want to be buried or cremated, but, I want you to be able to help me when the time comes by giving me some information now. It's good to know, not just what he wants, but where's his life insurance policy? Where's his paperwork? Is everything in order? I think it's a gift you can give your family member. Ooh, going to a queen's tomb. Kara is going camping in Ireland, and you're going to visit a cemetery and a tomb of a queen. That sounds so fun. Have you ever worked in a funeral home with 2 prep rooms? Not in the same building, in a facility that has multiple tables, yes, which is lovely to have space to, spread out. And so glow in the dark. Ooh, have you ever had to deal with an exhumation? Yes, I've done several disinterments. Of course, when everybody asks, I think they want to know, have you done one that's like a court case and they're going to redo an autopsy and do this? No, I've never been part of anything that kind of public or that, I don't know, of such importance that it's for a trial or something like that. When the casket is closed after viewing, is the deceased repositioned or laid down more in the casket? Are they covered with the material that lays on top of the casket on the lid? I guess I've always kind of thought that the deceased was maybe tucked in. So I use the term tucked in when I talk about closing the casket with a family. I say, do you want to be here with me when I tuck in your mom and close the casket? Because it's essentially what we do, unless you just crank them down, close the lid, and away they go. But it is a dance that I feel like I kind of do, where you turn in the sides of the fabric that kind of lays out. I take the overlay that's on the foot end of the casket and I'll place that down over the legs of the person. I'll lower the bed of the casket. There's a crank lowers and raises the bed of the casket if it's able to, if they need to be lowered down in further. And then I'll ask the family if they want to help me close the lid. I've asked family if they want to help me lock the casket if it locks. So there is a lot we do, and sometimes we have to get some creative positioning. Sometimes the person is larger or the bed doesn't go down anymore. So we maybe have to say, try and block out, because we have to kind of close it in pretty tight around the person. And not that we're doing something that's wrong, but it's just, there's no other way to do it. If that's what the family chose and that's what they want to do. And so, tucking in. Good morning, Katie. Hey, everyone. Hey, Dana. Seeing for other questions, guys. I'm scanning quick. Hey, Brandy. Oh, you're so welcome. How long does the body remain solid once in the ground? Oh, Kathy, go watch my video, my 2-minute on the number 1 asked question. There is no answer to how long does a body last. There is no answer to that. So Glow in the Dark says, in the UK, we have a small cloth cover that goes over the face before the coffin lid is screwed down. Also a shroud, which sort of covers the body like a sleeping bag. I did not see that when I was over in England, but that might be a practice of, certain funeral homes or certain funeral directors that they do something like that. Jean, you're having trouble getting shadow opportunities at local funeral homes. Any suggestions? So if you're looking for a shadow opportunity and you have not gone to and called every funeral home within an hour of you, then get on that part of it. Go try to do that. Call cemeteries and try and do maybe a shadow opportunity at a cemetery. You may then get a connection over to a funeral home or at a crematory. See if you can work at a crematory for a day with them and, help alongside. So look at the other avenues that you could also work in and see other parts of the business that may then connect you back over to the funeral side, because you may, or, a removal service or something like that, where then you get connected to a funeral home. And once that relationship's built, it's easier to allow somebody in and it's easier to ask for that in. Have you ever had a funeral for an entire family? I have not for an entire family. I've done several couples who died together, people with grandma and a child. We did have a funeral when I was working at the funeral home, but I was not a funeral director and stuff at the time. And we had four children. The dad had killed the 4 children, and moronically, he accidentally didn't get out in time. And so when he burned down the house, he had killed himself too, in that. So I hope it was painful for him. But that was spiteful, I know. But so that was the closest to a full family, I would say. That has been when I'm at a funeral home. How do you guys deal with COVID deaths? In South Africa, we do not view the body and do not even allow the family to touch the casket. Yeah, kind of normal. It depends on the funeral home as well and the comfort level of the funeral home, because every funeral home is also following the restrictions for funerals and visitations in their own interpretations. And so when you say only 10 people at a funeral, some people are doing 10 people per room in the funeral home, or 10 people at a time. So they cycle in 10 and then the next 10 and then the next 10, which means you've really had 30 people in the funeral home. So it doesn't really cut down on anything. So it depends on how people are interpreting the rules and the regulations. There, I think, are some areas of the country that are still being more strict than others about a cremation or immediate burial or things like that. Some cemeteries are spraying down the outside of the caskets and the urns when they're received into the facility, just to protect their workers and everybody that's there. So it's pretty broad as to how everybody's handling it. Oh yeah, glow in the dark. When you have a family member that was maybe the person who was driving and somebody else was killed, or I've seen boating, anything where maybe somebody was kind of at fault or it feels like they were guilty of maybe somebody else's accidental death, and it's a family member. It's so hard because you see them go through this horrible guilt during the funeral and everything. Yeah, it's so hard. Can a deceased person tell the family that they want to be cremated before passing? Sure, they can tell the family. I mean, you could tell your family at any time what it is you would like to have done. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I'm not sure what you're talking about. What do deceased wear at the morgue funeral home if the family haven't given you clothes for them yet? Whatever they're in, or they'll be naked on a dressing table waiting for their clothing to come with a sheet over them. Do you also do pet cremation? At one of the crematory, or well, several of the crematories now, they have a pet retort and a human retort. So they handle both. So here in Michigan, funeral homes don't have retorts in them. They may own an offsite crematory through a different business name, but they're not inside the funeral home like they are in some states. I'm a big fan of your channel. I am fascinated by the Abraham Lincoln funeral procession and its aftermath. One documentary I watched said that Abraham Lincoln was embalmed numerous times throughout his funeral, so he remained in a viewable condition. Can people be embalmed more than once? And if so, is this possible? Apparently, his features are still recognizable several years later when he was exhumed. You could re-inject somebody with a new mixture of fluid and then see if that fluid then does anything for the tissue. So as long as you're putting new fluid in, fluid essentially kind of does what it does and then it's done. And so putting new fluid in, it may work on tissue that wasn't, preserved before or deeper into the tissue. So you could always re-inject. We'll have that sometimes. We may get a body shipped into us from another state, and maybe the embalming wasn't so great, or we want more preservation or want to try again. And so we may try injecting. Once though you've aspirated, you break apart a lot of that structure within the whole cavity system, including the heart, which is your central engine of your body. So once you try and re-inject, it may not go very far because you've disrupted the central. So you may then have to raise other vessels and inject in other vessels within the body. But even especially going up into the head, we call it shooting. You shoot shoot fluid up into the head. You could always try to get more up into the head as well. So you can try to re-embalm. So when you grieve for a loss of a grandfather, because I miss my grandfather that died a year ago, do you think I can start a funeral home after him? Like name your funeral home after him? Kathy, you're so welcome. I'm so sorry you've lost both your parents in the last 2 years. That's a lot. Yeah, always good, Dan, to have way more questions that I can ever answer. Glow in the Dark says they're going to leave their body to medical science. So when you pay for your pet to be cremated, will that be how it is done alone? So you can either choose to do the mass or multiple cremation, or you can pay for a solo cremation or single cremation for your pet. So it's your choice which you would want done. There's not a shortage of funeral directors and embalmers in the US. There's a lot of people going to school, a lot coming out of school, but the people in school are having a hard time finding, opportunities because a lot of them don't realize that you have to move. You need to relocate a lot of times. If you put it in this aspect, so let's say I grew up in a small town and in a small area. And so if I'm going to return to want to be a funeral director there, I have to wait for the one funeral director in that town to die or retire. So it's not a thing where people are hiring often in a smaller business or replacing their staff in a smaller business. A lot of times that person may be there, and maybe that person in that town or in that area for their whole career. After those 40, 50 years or however long they're going to work, then they're going to need to get somebody in there, but it may take a long time. So if you return back to your small town or you return back to your home area, you may have to travel 1-2 hours away to get somewhere that actually is looking for staff. To be able to have an apprentice, you have to have also the income and revenue in your business to afford another salary for somebody, even though they're not a licensed funeral director. So that's not always probable for a business as well. Yes, all organs are left inside the body at the funeral home. It is an autopsy where organs are removed. Thanks so much, F. Gamble. What flavor coffee are you drinking today? Oh, Trevor. Hello and good morning. Today is Pete's coffee, and I put a little coconut milk in it. So nothing special. Trevor and I did our questions for Massachusetts yesterday together, which was exciting. We had some iced coffee together yesterday. Hey, Dylan, go ahead and drop your heavy question. Do you ever mistakenly take the wrong body to a home for viewing? That happened last week in South Africa. The embalmer put the wrong lid on the casket. Oh my. No, and we don't really go to the home often for viewing, but even having the wrong person out when the family came in would be horrific. It can happen if bodies are not labeled and tagged correctly, if you have a lot of staff that's working. So, if it's a smaller funeral home, I would have gone to maybe the home or the hospital to get the person. I would have met with the family. I would have seen pictures of the person. I would know that it was the person and would have met their family and stuff. But if you have a larger facility, a larger staff, you may not have any of that, and you just have to go by what the tags say, what the names say, and such. So I could see how that can easily happen in certain situations. Oh, my best friend's baby passed away at 3 months old yesterday. We are planning an at-home funeral memorial. Do you have any advice? So baby's cremated then, and you're just going to have a gathering at the home, right? In the States, after an autopsy, do you place the removed organs back into the chest cavity in a bag, same as here? Yes, some embalmers do what we call breading, though, where they remove all the organs from that bag and they will coat them in a paraformaldehyde powder and put them back in the cavity. So some people don't leave them in the bag and treat them in the bag with cavity. So it just depends on how the embalmer embalms. What is the process to make sure you're truly deceased? There's a lot of time between typically death and burial here, even 24 hours. So there's a decent amount of time, let alone if you're embalmed and such. Yes. Okay. So baby's cremated. There's so many cool things you could do with that situation. If you're having a gathering, don't avoid the fact that it's a baby, and don't avoid the fact that you're remembering this life. Set up a bassinet with the urn in it or pictures in it, and have that be kind of a central point. Have a central point. There's nothing that makes that situation any less than something that sucks, truly. You can't mask, you can't flower it up, you can't make it not hurt, but you can make it beautiful and memorable for them in that moment, because after that day, that baby's still gone and it still sucks for them and everything still hurts. So do things that are remembrant of that child, not like mask it over by not having baby things there and not having, have it be casual, having it at their home means a lot of work for them. It means set up, clean up. It means this quiet lull after everyone has left, and then the darkness settling in over them more because they're in this quiet. So just tell them, we will have a crew that comes in and cleans up. We will take away all the garbage. We will have food. We will take care, do things for them without saying, hey, what do you need us to do? Because right now they're just trying to breathe, truly. So the question, what do you want us to do, means they actually have to think about what needs to be done. And them trying to put on clothes in the morning is going to be enough for them that day. So just, offering and telling, but making sure you're listening to them too. When they talk and say, something about the child or something about their wishes, follow them. Follow those wishes, follow what they want. Just follow their lead, but also provide without having to ask for them. Those would be my best words of advice. So that's a horrible situation, and nothing's going to take away any of the pain that day. Nothing, literally nothing. So just kind of go with it and see what, they need in that moment. Hey, do you use the troll car if the body was autopsy? No, you don't use the troll car because the whole cavity is open. And Dylan, also, if you have other questions, just email me directly on anything. So I'm always available, happy to help. So you can always email me directly. Oh, great. Good idea, Dylan, to do that. But bring some of the baby's things over maybe if they would like. And then maybe they're out of the house for a little while too, some of the baby items, and then later ask them if they want them back. It's just hard. I've had people who didn't want to hold their baby. I have people who want to hold the baby the whole time. You have people who, everybody has to do whatever they feel in those moments of loss, whether it's a child or not. And you're going to get every end of the spectrum. So you can't tell them what they need to do. You can't tell anybody what they need to do in grief and loss. Try to keep them from being heavily medicated. Don't, if someone's trying to give them medication so that they can sleep or they're calm, let them feel right now. Help them to not be heavily medicated right now. My nephew passed away from SIDS and parent took him out of coffin and people held him. Yeah, all the time. I'll bring in a rocking chair. I'll be the first one to hold the baby, but I take the lead from the parents. So if somebody else wants to come in and hold the baby and the parents don't want to hold the baby, nobody holds the baby. It's up to the parents. So I may ask, if the grandparents want to, I may ask the parents, but it's all up to the parents. Have you ever had a person that you just couldn't do? No, not yet. What happened to the death with dignity guy? I hear him mentioned a lot in your funerals, in your videos. So that was what, it was over 2 years ago now. And every once in a while, this man, heck, it could be a woman, who knows, reaches out and says something. I tried recently to do my due diligence, and they were asking to do a video with them again. And I gave every opportunity. I set up multiple different events. I sat at my computer waiting for him to show up. I sent emails that didn't get responses. So I've done my due diligence with this person, and I don't know that they really exist or that they really have cancer or that they really are anything. So yeah, it's if I get duped, I got duped, but it is what it is. Yeah, Belinda, did you lose a child? What is the difference between a coffin and a casket? Answered that one yesterday in my 2-minute. My third question is about the grave site of Martin Luther King Jr. Assuming he is buried in the sarcophagus-like structure at the center of the fountain island, how does the grave receive ventilation to prevent a buildup of gas that could damage the stone sarcophagus? If there's a stone sarcophagus on top, it would take an insane amount of gas to blow out the casket that's buried down below, to blow up through the ground, to bust through a sarcophagus on top. So I wouldn't really be worried about that at all, especially at this point. I'm sure that's beyond any issue that would be going on within the burial. Have you ever placed someone in the casket with their head on the right side and their feet on the left side so that the left side of their body was showing for viewing? Yes. I had this, a gentleman had trauma on his right side of his face from an accident. He lived for a while in the hospital. So when the family came in to do some pre-planning, knowing they were going to be pulling the life support, we discussed doing a full couch casket, which is not common in our area, but was a great answer to the situation. So we got a full couch casket. He was laid with his head to the right. So when you walked up, you saw his left side of his head first. And it worked perfectly that we could kind of have a better presentation. And that's really what the family wanted and was one of their main concerns when they came in, is that we could solve that problem for them. In the case of a grave like Elvis Presley, is his elongated tombstone the sole covering of his actual grave? I'm confused if people buried in concrete graves are covered in concrete, or if his tombstone is the only thing separating the top of his casket from the outside world, whereas people buried in the earth are covered with earth. Hopefully that makes sense. So have you guys been to Elvis Presley's grave? I haven't. I am just looking for a picture of Elvis Presley's grave so that we can answer this. Okay, so he has one of those big flat overlays. So he is not right under that. That is almost a covering for the whole grave. And so he's going to be down in the earth in a vault, most likely under there, unless somebody really can find me different information, but that's exactly what it looks like that is. Looks like all his family is there. It's kind of a really cool setup for a burial area, that it's curved around this fountain. So I will look into and see if I find any different information about Elvis Presley's burial. Do you do different themes for funerals? Like example, I would like a Disney themed funeral or a superhero funeral. We can really do anything. There are some funeral homes that are really specializing in personalized funerals and that are just kind of going for it with each funeral. And they're really highlighting different hobbies and things about the person. The only downfall about that to me is, what about everything else about the person? So if, like, for a veteran, you're highlighting that they're a veteran and you go way over the top, having veteran stuff sitting around like flags and red, white, and blue, this, that, and the other. Well, that was a small part of their whole life. So what about the rest of their life? What about their other hobbies? What about everything else about them? So I think sometimes when you focus on one attribute or one hobby or one thing or whatever their career was, if you focus on that one thing, what about everything else? How can you highlight more in the moment? So sometimes I think it's almost over the top focused on one thing, and it kind of sideways is not even about the person as much anymore as it is about making the event about this one thing. So I think there's that fine line to make sure you stay within, that you are still focused on the person and what you're doing with all that personalization. And I guess, as you're saying, a theme. So I think it's, fine line. I've never done extreme embalming. There is very few people that actually do that. And when they do, it seems to be all over the news, like it's happening a lot. In certain areas, it does happen, like in Puerto Rico is one area where they do that quite a bit. And it's very hush-hush how they do it. So maybe if I send them an email every day or a letter every day, maybe I'll wear them down so they'll talk to me. The person was a big soccer fan and they wanted everyone to wear football shirts. I felt it was disrespectful and wore a suit and black tie. Even we've had funerals where people want like everybody to wear red or everybody to wear a certain color or a certain thing. Like as a funeral director, one was bib overalls. Everybody wore bib overalls to it. I thought about wearing bib overalls that day, like in a suit jacket over it and stuff, but I just couldn't do it. To me, it's such a event of, I don't know. There's just a certain level of this respect and somberness to the event and classiness and things. And to me, I still do the suit. I have, there was one person and they always wore certain t-shirts and stuff, and everybody was going to wear this certain t-shirt. And I did wear a t-shirt under my suit coat and with my suit pants. So I was a little more casual. Family loved that I joined them, but not something I would do unless I really knew the family. I had met with them. I knew what was going on. I have gotten ties for the staff to wear, like, maybe they were a Michigan fan, so I got some Michigan ties, or, things like that where I can personalize, or if I know the person had a favorite color, I will wear that color blouse that day. So there's different little things like I'll do, but I don't think as a funeral director I could show up too casual. Even if the family was like, yes, we want you to do this, we want you to wear jeans, I just don't think I could, unless it was maybe like a private little graveside and they really insisted and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Charlie Chaplin's body was stolen and held for ransom. I will have to look at Charlie Chaplin. You guys have me investigating some of these things. Body stolen. Ooh, we're going to look into it. We will look into it. When you start to pay for your funeral, I have brain cancer, of course, call the funeral home, meet with one of the pre-funding and pre-arrangement specialists, and you can start getting things together. There are still, you can still put money in towards a trust. You can't lock in prices unless it's paid in full, or if you're doing the insurance. But if you have a pre-existing condition, that's going to affect what kind of insurance they might be able to do. So you can definitely still talk to them about it and see what your options are, even if you just get your plan in place to know how much it's going to be and save your money aside in your own account. So you can do some different things. Is it true that for Muslim or Jewish death preparation, the undertaker does not participate in the preparation, but instead is attended to by fellow Jewish or Muslim staff? Yes, so their own community members will come in to bathe and dress and care for them. So like in the Muslim, I'm not even in the room. I am outside the room because I don't view their practice. That's their request. If it's a man that in the Muslim faith, I am not even allowed around. Only a man is. So it's very gender specific when it comes to the Muslim faith. Ooh, Wendy, that's really interesting. She read an obituary that said, don't wear jeans or t-shirts or flip-flops. I kind of like that's the reverse. Like, don't show up to this funeral if you're not dressed up. I think that's really, really interesting. Jessica's asking, you once said that there were certain characteristics of someone that passed from a heart attack. A medical examiner said my grandpa's heart attack was obvious from his face. What happens? Well, and this is not like 100% certainty, but a lot of times a person's face will be darker, like darker from blood engorged in your head. Things like that might be a key thing that they see and can go from. Can I be encapsulated in acrylic? I don't see why not. We would just have to find the form to pour, and all the acrylic would be pouring in to encapsulate you. What would we do with you after you were encapsulated in acrylic? Do I believe the rumors that Walt Disney's head is cryogenically frozen? I don't know. I guess it's not something I've ever really thought about too deeply. I'll have to look. I'll have to read some more and see. I've always thought they should do memorial services at Disney World and Disneyland. I had wrote to them a couple of years ago when I was going to Disneyland and asked if I could do like a tour and if I could talk to somebody about what if I wanted to do more a memorial service there, like if they just set one day aside in one area of the park that you could rent to do memorial services and bring like cremated remains only, and you could come and maybe they had a scattering garden or something for people to be buried technically at Disneyland or Disney World, because there are die-hard Disney fans. And so I would think that would be a niche market thing that people would really want to do, or a niche market. And nobody ever responded. They said, oh, no. They did respond, but said like, At this time, Disneyland does not partake in the death care business or something along those lines. So that's kind of bummed. I thought they needed to do that. Hey, John in Michigan. Where are you at in Michigan, John? All right, going to do 1 or 2 more questions here. Right after, so what is your take on excavating ancient graves and placing their inhabitants on display like mummies in a museum? Do you think it is disrespectful to remove them from their final resting place? Or do you think the pros outweigh the cons for the sake of education? I think this is a really great question. I may save this. I am doing another beer with the boys, and I may save this and do this with the beer with the boys and discuss this with Brian and Ryan from Undertaking the Podcast. That might be a really good one to discuss with them, I think. So we will save that. 20 minutes south of Detroit. Nice. Can you scatter your cremains on a beach? Short answer, not legal. So you can do it. May you do it? It is not legal to, no. Unless you get permission from the landowner, which would be the state that you're in. Just like you would need permission from the people that own Disneyland if you scattered your ashes at Disneyland, Nancy. Yeah, Trevor, it kind of does, but he puts it inside rather than putting the whole person in the acrylic, I think. So yeah, guys, I'm going to be posting some questions on my dashboard to get your help and your input. I need you guys to help me decide on a few topics for a few upcoming videos I'm getting ready to do. And so I would love your ideas. I have a few trips I'm laying out for the next couple months. I'm really excited. I think today needs to be the day I pick my St. Louis trip. And I'm really excited about the St. Louis trip. So I think it's going to be in August. So, hey, August, hey, St. Louis, coming down. And I think I have a trip to Iowa coming up. Iowa, who knew? I need to check how far of a drive it is or if I need to fly. I don't know. I don't know how long it takes to get to Iowa. Never been. What's like Iowa? Who knew? So, yeah, Iowa. But I am so thankful for you guys. Make sure you subscribe so you can check out a next video. And I'm thankful. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.